But thank you. I'm the current president of Women in NRCS for this year, and there's a lot of great things that Women in NRCS is doing, and hopefully you're getting that information. I sent out a weekly announcement today. We're doing those announcements every Friday. If you have any kind of details or vacancies in your state or just anything that's going on that you want us to announce, please send that to myself or April by Thursday, and then we'll get it in our weekly announcements. We're also posting that information on Facebook. We get most hits from any kind of job announcements, and so I keep track of kind of what people are interested in, and those job announcements are really getting looked at. So just please keep sending those to us, because we do want to encourage all of our members to apply for all those great opportunities that you have in your state. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, April, and let's get this kicked off. It's going to be a great series today.
Got to unmute. Thank you, Christy. We've been looking forward to this, and I hope you have too. Couple of things. If you will mute your phone, it will make the feedback more tolerable. It gets pretty wonky. We get a lot of echoing if we don't mute. We are recording because we want this to be available to folks who aren't able to make it, and that will be able to listen to it later. We also made a slight adjustment to the agenda. You know, when you make a few changes, there's a lot of breadcrumbs to pick up and change, and they didn't all get done. So some of our speakers have some conflicts, and so we're going to move all of the SES leadership that has the experience has been SES members for a while. We're going to move them up, and then Karlease will go after them, and then Astrid and Karen will follow them. So, and if there's any other issues, IM me or let me know pretty quickly. If you have questions as we go, you can send me an instant message. There is a chat option on Zoom, and then we'll have a time to ask questions later on too. So everybody's good, then I'm going to turn it over to Katrina for some introductions and get us kicked off.
All right, thanks April and Christy. We are really excited. This is a year-long effort, which most of you probably already know because you've been on some of the previous webinars that we've had, the Zoom meetings. But I want to go back and just recap, because this really is meant to give you tools to help build your inspiring decade. Where are we going to be 10 years from now? As we all know, we're going through epic time. And so, you know, we've got a lot to navigate, and we're doing very well. We're doing a good job. So at the beginning, April sent out a workbook, and it's pretty long, and we keep adding pages so that you can keep taking notes and build yourself. April and I started, here's mine, a notebook. All right, it's a binder, it's got 10 tabs for 10 years. And I've got my workbook printed out and my notes. I'm gonna keep them in there. I'm gonna write myself, you know, some journal entries and things like that, because I have a lot to do in the next 10 years. And I think this series that we have launched can help not only me, but everybody in inspiring your decade. And what do you want to do with your career? So I want to thank, again, Marcel. She kicked us off with 3 hours of inspiring a decade. So you can find those materials and those recordings. April has those recordings in Zoom. If you haven't taken those, I highly encourage you to do that. Then the last month, we had Kevin Norton and our deputy chief explain NRCS structure. So where do I want to fit in that structure? Is there something more interesting in a different division that I might want to look into? What would I need to prepare myself for that? That was very, very valuable, and I want to thank everybody who participated in that session. Now, this is our 4th session. This is going to be giving you information about the senior executive service. And we have, I'm going to rely on Karlease for the right figures and some of the SESers, but I think we have 36 or 37 in our agency currently. And we could not, of course, invite them all. We would love to have, but we'll keep getting more involved as we work out the rest of the year. So we've got folks that want to give you somebody's got on. Put their phones on mute, please. And so before we launch into that, though, the rest of the year, we're going to be talking about SLDP, state leadership opportunities. We're going to have some HR folks coming in talking to us about how to navigate through USA jobs, why it's important to take a how do I write my resume, and who I interview. It's still loaded with educational in it to win it for our WIN members, and if you invite guests, and we really hope our leaders will join us too, and helping us recruit females to help inspire their next grade and get to their next career goal. So without somebody is that a cat?
So there's a 717 number that is making a lot of noise.
I'm on 71776, but I'm not.
Hannah? Oh, no. Hey, Hannah, can you hear us? Hannah?
April, I think if you're the host, you can put all the lines in mute. There's something in Zoom that if you're the host, you can put on the lines in mute. Just look for it.
I think you're right. I'm not sure where that's at. Until I find that, if you all would please mute, that would be helpful. Thanks.
All right, so I'm not going to take up any more time because we have some really valuable, inspiring leaders that are going to take over this presentation and let you know all about their experiences. And without further ado, April, we're going to call on who first?
We are going to call on Gayle and crew, if Gayle Barry is ready.
Thank you. So thank you for setting this up. We're all really excited, and I just leafed through the 4 pages of people online. Wow, this is a great turnout. So hi Karlease, there's 7 of us, and we have 45 minutes, maybe a little less. So we want to talk really quick, but we want to have everybody who's on the line give us a chance to talk. So we decided amongst ourselves that we would defer to the senior exec amongst us and let Miss Diane Gelburd start. So Diane.
Thanks, Gayle. Hi, everyone. It's great to be able to visit with all of you. I'm particularly excited to have Karlease on as well because she can give, I think, a very broad overview of and history of the Senior Exec Service. I did not goal to be in the Senior Exec Service. It came about as an accident for me. I was very happy being in a technical position. I actually started out as an archaeologist, and I was asked by my supervisor at the time if I would have an associate position or collateral position as an assistant director of the Economics and Social Sciences Division, which was something I did not aspire to. I told him I never wanted to be in management, but he said to me, well, you can try it, and if you don't like it, you can always go back. So I figured, okay, I could do that. But then I found that once you're in management, it's really not easy to go back because people sort of think that you're sort of giving up. But I was lucky because I really enjoyed it. And I really always had as a goal to be in a director position, but not necessarily in the senior executive service. And then one day I was asked to apply for a position in the senior exec service, which I did not expect. And but I had applied for another job, so I figured, well, I can always go put in my resume, and that would be fine, which is what I did. And when they asked me for an interview, I told Judy Johnson, a friend and mentor of mine, which some of you know, that I wasn't ready for this and that I was just going to tell them I wasn't ready. And she said to me, no, you know, you applied for it, you're going to do it. And she coached me. And I think that's one of the things that's very important about having a mentor and a coach. They sort of push you along when you least want to go. And so she coached me and really helped me in terms of the interview, and has coached me and mentored me for my entire senior executive career, and has really taught me a lot on the way. And it was there's a few points I wanted to make about being a senior executive, since we have a little time. Karlease might talk about this. It's, you know, it's an honor and it's a very important job. I spoke to a number of senior managers in the Japanese government a few months back, and they were asking me a number of questions, some of which were quite delicate. One of the things that, in talking with them, I told them it's made me very proud to be in the federal government and as well as a senior executive, is that we're the leaders that keep the government running no matter what happens. We're the ones that are the relationship, the communication link between the political, you know, the political administration in power and their political agenda, and translate it into the implementing what's necessary for the government services at that time. But we're also the ones that keep the government running during transition times. And that's very important, especially when you see that sometimes we've been without a chief for a year or two, when we've had to keep everything moving. And we have to make sure that all of our services are provided, especially when you look at a situation like we're in today, where, you know, we're part of the front line. We're having to make sure that all, you know, USDA services can be provided, and look at options that can be provided, and make sure that we support our folks in the field as well as we can. So since we have a little time, I just wanted to say that I hope all of you are aspiring to provide the leadership that we need in the federal government. It's incredibly important that we have the best leaders, and it's an incredible, I think, honor to serve in this capacity. But you also have to be very flexible and willing to be resilient, mainly for the different jobs you have to do, but also because the senior executive service, the philosophy when they set up the senior executive service was to be a senior executive corps that could do anything in any role in the federal government. So in my case, I have been in 9 different senior executive positions. And the good news there is that you don't have to apply for a job, they offer it to you. And the bad news there is that you have to take it usually, whether or not you really want it. And I've had some positions that I've been asked to take that were like the positions that I've never wanted. But I've been really lucky in that every position I've ever been in, I've loved. And every position has been an education and a growth experience. And I think that's what you have to embrace, is that these are, you know, opportunities to expand your horizons and to learn new things and to keep you know, your energy up and refreshed. And I feel very fortunate to be in the science and technology position that I'm in now, because that's one of my true loves. And so it's with great enthusiasm that I can continue in the senior exec service. And on that, I've been a little over 5 minutes, so I'll turn it over back to Gayle.
Thanks, Diane. You have been a mentor for me, and you're always just so, spend some time with Diane if you guys ever see her at a meeting and just ask her more questions. She's got great advice. So now we're going to go to the one who has, I believe, been in the senior exec service for our agency the shortest amount of time, Miss Carrie Lindig.
Keep you muted, Kari.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
That's good. Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Thanks, Carrie.
Okay. All right. Thanks, you guys. Yes, thank you for asking for me to participate in this. I have been a senior executive service employee now for 3 weeks, officially. And it's been very challenging and very interesting. For those of you who I have not met yet, I'm Carrie Lindig. I have had spent most of my career out in the West. And 7 years ago, I became the state conservationist in New Jersey and really thought that I would live out my career in New Jersey as a state conservationist because it was a job I enjoyed so much. And then we had a leadership program between New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and the class, the students, asked Denise and I if we aspired to do anything else and what would it be. And I hadn't really thought about it. And I just kind of said off the cuff, I said, well, I'm not really interested in that many positions, but I really like easements. So if the easement position would become available, I would consider applying. And then lo and behold, it became, the vacancy was announced like a couple months later. And it was a senior exec position, and I was not familiar with the qualifications and the requirements of a senior exec position. And I think you'll hear later on, there's a couple of different paths that you can take to become a senior exec. And so I basically applied for it without having gone to the school, and just kind of threw my name in the hat to see how it would go. And I was very fortunate in that I was selected. And it's been a very, very interesting, it's a drinking out of the fire hose kind of situation, but I do love NRCS, and I love my staff that I have and the things that we're doing. And I've got a lot of ideas about what I want to do with easements moving forward. Jimmy Bramlett is my supervisor, and he's mentioned to me a couple times that there are, he believes, I don't know if this is correct, but he said that there are 2,000 senior executive service employees within federal government and 300 within USDA. So he said, you're at the top of the heap, and a lot is expected of you. And yeah, so it's very, I'm humbled, and I'm very privileged to be in the position that I'm at, and I'm only looking forward and trying to build on it. And I would welcome any calls, anytime to talk about what I had gone through. And I too have used Diane Gelburd as a mentor, and encourage you to do so as well, and reach out at any time. Thanks, Gayle.
Thank you, Carrie. So April and Katrina, now we're just going to go in the order that we were listed in the agenda, and we'll try to make this quick. I know we don't have very many time for questions here, but we're all available, as Carrie just said, and Diane said too, for any questions over email or individual mentoring. Just reach out. And so with that, I'll give you my take. Just a quick background, I'm Gayle Barry, and I am no longer a senior executive. I am a GS-15 in California. But I have held 2 senior executive positions, the Deputy Chief for Management and the Regional Conservationist for the Northeast. So you can see those are very different skill sets, very different knowledge base, and it really is about your ability to manage, to ask questions, and to be a pillar for the agency, to know your agency, know what you need to do, and how to move people forward. So unlike Diane, I really wanted to be in the senior executive service because I was in California back before I came back to California. And I wanted to have access to be the state conservationist in California should that job come open. In our agency, there's 2 senior execs out in the field. The state conservationist for Texas and the state conservationist for California, and the rest are in DC. And I'm sure Karlease will give you our numbers, but I think we're more like in the 20s, between 21 and 25 senior execs in NRCS, but she'll give you the official numbers here soon. So it's really, as you can see, with 10,500 or 11,000 employees, it's pretty stiff competition. It's very much an honor to get into, and it's something that you'll want to think about in advance. So with that, I did go through the Senior Executive Candidate Development Program, and I know that Astrid and Karen are on, and they're going to talk about what a great experience that is. I highly recommend it. And one of the reasons that I did that was because for me, my personal goal is I want to be the best leader I can be. And for me, I really, I needed that time to grow, to learn, and to have that experience. So for me, it was really invaluable. And Katrina, to your point about journaling, I do attribute that to a lot to my success in the agency. Every year around January, I still to this day, I'm not a very good journaler on a regular basis, but I sit down and I write my goals about both what I want to do at work and what I want to do personally, because we all have read enough that, with intention comes actions that follow those intentions. And I just can't say, for those of you who are out there, no matter what you're thinking about, whatever you're aspiring to, writing that down and being thoughtful about what your heart desires and what you're going to put your commitment behind are really important. The next piece of advice I'd have for you, get mentors, because you have to tell people your dreams, right? No matter what it is, you've got to give voice to that, and people are going to sniff out right away if you just came up with it 30 minutes before you walked into their office and asked them. That's back to the point about being intentional with that. And you don't have to have just one. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of different, for as many senior execs as you're going to talk to in the next hour, there's just as many different stories on how to achieve your goals. But you have to have those people around you that can support you and that know what you want to do, be looking out for career enhancing activities for you, and just be there as a sounding board. I would also say know why you want to be a senior exec for sure. Maybe some of the other positions in the agency weren't, maybe I didn't feel as strongly about that, but for the senior exec, it's exhausting. But it's also very rewarding. So know why it is you want to be a senior exec, and know that it's not like, oh, I just want to be it because I get paid a little bit more money, because you'll be really disappointed with that. So, have a passion, have a vision, and know what the change is you want to be in the world, because you really can do that. You can have so much impact on this little agency of ours that we're so proud of and we love. So, be really clear about that, because it's an awesome opportunity to be heard, to have to make some changes for all the agencies and the landowners and the landscapes that we have stewardship over. And so, it's a really cool thing. And so I definitely encourage you to figure out why you want to contribute and what you want to contribute. But at the end of the day, you have to keep your own counsel. As a senior exec, I often get conflicting advice. You need to be more assertive. As women, right? We hear this all the time. You need to be more assertive. And then other times, like, you have a sharp tongue, you've hurt people with your words. So, I've gotten completely opposite advice within 3 months of each other, and it just, you'll get that, right? You're in a more visible role, more people are watching you, more people have thoughts about how you're leading. And so, you know, take that advice, you know, take it to heart, listen. If you need to make a change, think about how you can make that change in any position we're at. But, you know, keep your own counsel and go back to that, that rock of why you want to do this and what you want to do. And are you doing it in a way? For me, you know, it's all about people, taking care of the people that take care of the land. And so I think as you go up through the organization, it is more of a people business. And so you'll get a lot of opportunity to do that. I think Diane was right on board. If you're aspiring to be a senior exec, you have to start early. It's not something you can just wake up one morning and say, oh, I think today I'll apply for the senior exec program. Karlease is going to talk a lot about that. And so I'm sure Astrid and Karen will too. You just have to be thoughtful and prepared to spend a lot of time, you know, getting ready, jumping through the paperwork hoops. All of that just takes a lot of energy. And so, like the others who've gone before me, I welcome any calls anytime, and am happy to talk to people about anything that's on their minds. I also want to tell the folks on this call specifically, I did all of this when my daughter was ages, I guess she was probably 6 when I got into the senior exec program. And then when I left, she was 12. So, you know, you can balance it. You have to have an awesome support system because, you know, it's a lot, but there's a lot of women who have managed to do it and balance it. And I'm always happy to talk about that offline. So with that said, I will turn it over next to Astor Boozer. Astor, I think I saw you on here.
Yes, Gayle, how are you doing? And how's everyone on the call today? Christy, she may be back and forth, April, Katrina. You guys, I appreciate having the opportunity to hold on, to speak to the group. Hold on, folks. Give me a second.
Astor's got the most beautiful shepherd. He's really pretty.
Okay, sorry about that. My dog is following me through the house and was barking and going on, having fun. So I apologize, guys. But so yeah, thanks, Gayle. I appreciate that. And you know, I want to just take a few minutes and talk a little bit about experiences that I've had. First of all, I'd like to say that I totally agree with the things that Diane and Carrie and Gayle mentioned when it comes to, from their perspective, their experiences. And I think that's something that's important. You know, all of us, no matter what position that we're in, we will have different experiences, and experience will affect us differently as well. But it also will shape us and give us that opportunity to define who we really are. So any of the opportunity you have, whether you're looking at a senior exec position or something that you don't think you have time for now, or whatever it might be, you know, as you go through your career, things that you're dealing with will actually shape your future, shape your career, shape the opportunities that you have. You know, I think about myself, and you know, I've been fortunate to where I've held line officer positions, and I'll talk about that just for a second because I think it'll share with you why I'm in the senior exec position. I'm the regional conservationist for the West region. So, you know, when I was working earlier as a soil conservationist, I get to the district conservationist, and I had a county that I was managing, and working with staff. I had the landowners in that particular county, all the other functioning bodies, units of government that I was working with. And then I moved to where I had a 3-county operation, and it began to be something that the more I had the opportunity to expand the engagement of people, the more I liked it, you know, and that is what has led me to this here particular opportunity. You know, Gayle mentioning enjoying the people and being really linked to you know, helping the land. And I have been excited about that for years, and I get excited when I'm talking to people about what it is that I do. So I think more of that as I moved up into an AC position, it was more of that how the opportunity I have to have more reach, to work with more people, have more of a broader perspective of what it is that I'm doing as an individual, but what also it is as an employee within an agency that I can help deliver and move forward. So moving up from that into a state conservation, you have this whole state that you are functioning and are responsible for. It really gives you that opportunity to think, you know, is this here an opportunity for me to share what the agency is doing? Can I be a conduit to help other people? You know, and I think the opportunities come along with this here senior exec position, or looking at all of our employees and thinking about how we can help all of our employees and also landowners across the nation get an opportunity to participate in our programs, and also from the employee side, an opportunity to have discussions like this here with a broad perspective audience, to where I am trying to show and help support individuals as they want to move and maneuver their career to get to some of these opportunities that are there available. So my experience has been more of that. We all have from that bad days in and out about that. Everybody would have one of the days that you say, well, hey, you know, this is not what I was expecting. So that will happen. But the 95, 96, 99% of the time, the excitement behind what you do and how you do it makes your job feel like it's not a job, you know, and I think that's the important side of it. You know, even though Gayle mentioned there's long hours sometimes, you really work hard, you know, and the pay really isn't that substantial to where you say, oh, that's going to be all I'm looking for. We work hard in these positions, and there's a lot of responsibility. But when it's said and done, that overall feeling of being able to help and assist or be at the table to where decisions are being made, you know, and how you can influence not only rules and regulations, but how things are utilized throughout the nation. You know, so from that perspective, the experience has been great for me. I think I have had an opportunity to share with a lot of individuals. I've had a lot of opportunity to make recommendations, to make selections, to give folks an opportunity to move from one place to another, to provide a little bit of counsel here and there. So that leadership role, that part is something else that is welcoming, you know. And I think you, as many of you on the phone that are video that are hearing me, have that way about you, that you want to do more, you want to have more engagement, you want to help more people and everything. So that experience is the majority of why I am in the position that I'm in. I applied for the position like everybody, you know. The Senior Executive Development Program, I did not go through the program. I applied for Senior Executive position as a 15-state conservationist, and was blessed and fortunate that I was selected. Spent some time with some additional higher level training, and it's been great. I've enjoyed it. So either way a person's track would go, whether you apply for the program or if you apply for the position, I don't think there's one either or better than the other. It just depends on kind of where you are at your career level and the opportunities that you have. So, folks, I'll stop right there. I plan to hang on if there are some questions that come up later. It's been a great experience for me, you know, and the overall opportunity of being able to assist, help, be a part of the larger decision making for the nation, and not only the nation but the world. There's a lot of things that happen at this higher level that sometimes at our field office level you never see and you never hear about. So I'm fortunate, I'm blessed, and I really appreciate having this opportunity to visit with you guys, and also I appreciate having the opportunity to be in the senior executive ranks. Thanks, Gayle. I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Astor. Great advice. Terrell Erickson, are you online?
Gayle, I don't think she was able to call in. She had an appointment.
Okay, great. Thanks. So Maggie, you're next.
Hi, everybody. So I talked last time, so I'm hoping most of you heard me last time. But the one thing I can talk about is I did go through the CDP with 18 others. I applied on my own. I didn't go through sponsorship through the agency. But I find the main things that have helped me my whole career, not just as a senior exec, are keeping to your core values, being authentic, being inclusive, leading and not managing. Just because you're, I mean, I started as a technician. I was basically leading from the first job I got up all through my career. So that's what I would say, you know, think about leading versus just managing. And then what I found, I think I probably in my career would not have been selected for an SES position, but because of the 2 years I spent in Afghanistan, I think that gave me the skills at a different level for my leadership. And then I wasn't in a hurry because I owned a farm. I had a couple kids. You know, I took my time getting really good at every job I did before I moved up to the next one. I waited till either the kids were in high school or elementary school, college, that kind of thing. You have to do what's right for yourself. And that's why I say your core values and what you believe. You're not on anybody else's timeline. You have to decide what's best for you. And to me, that's what's worked for me. I would say that one of the big things I've done my whole career is I've treated and supported my employees from the beginning of when I was a technician all through my career the same way, respecting, inclusive, communicating, being supportive, fairness, male, females, anything. What I've found is when there's not, and those are my core values. I mean, I believe in those, I live by those, and I'll die by those. That's the main thing, is to be true to yourself, true to your family, true to the agency. That's the stuff to me that makes good soldiers and good employees. And I love the mission of NRCS. I think we are so lucky to be part of this. My kids are proud of what I do. To me, that is, you can't go through life and not have all that and go, darn, this is great. So, and I would say be safe out there, and that's all I have to say. Thanks. Reach out anytime you need me.
Great. So Katrina, Sal's not coming, all right? Or Sal's not on? Okay, so I think we're done, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, whether you want to keep moving through the agenda and just how you want to do this. So thank you so much for inviting all of us. We were all really excited to speak. We know it was super quick, but we know you guys have a great agenda. Your organization is amazing. We love what you guys, the initiative that you have taken and where you're taking the women of NRCS. So thanks for all you do every single day with this great organization. Back to you, Katrina.
Thanks, Gayle, and I hope my phone doesn't have weird feedback. I am just it's so great to have you all together and hear your support and your stories. And there are some of our folks that have spoke that need to jump off for a meeting by 2 o'clock. So let's open it up for a few questions. What's going to happen next is we're going to have Karlease give us how the SES program works on the HR side of things, the human resources, and what to expect there. And then we get to hear from Karen and Astrid, because they are actively seeking this opportunity. And they're in it. They're in it to win it. So is there anybody who has any questions for Gayle, Carrie, Maggie, Astor, or Diane? All right, that's fine. You can always put it in the chat. And like Gayle said, they all extended their welcome to be in touch with them, send them an email, ask them, questions. So thank you so, so much. So let's move on to Karlease. And I think April is going to share a presentation that Karlease has put together for us.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I know I'm very proud to be part of USDA. USDA is at the heart of making sure that America, and in some cases the world, has a safe, affordable, and abundant food supply. And I can't think of anything more meaningful to be part of. And I'm really happy to be here today to share with you just briefly some information about the path to the SES. So thanks for inviting me. If we'll go to the next slide. One thing that I wanted to show you, we won't spend a lot of time here, but you'll get these slides and you can study them and kind of ponder them. But this is a picture of what the Office of Personnel Management views as the leadership journey and what competencies you might want to focus on developing at different levels in your career. Kind of across the bottom, you'll see everybody needs a set of fundamental competencies. And then as you sort of advance in your career, you're developing different competencies. All the way up to the executive level. So I thought that might be of interest just to show you. And these competencies come into play as we talk about your path. So if we want to go to the next slide, one of the things that I really want to encourage you to do is to think about putting leadership development activities into your individual development plan. This is, just a basic kind of thing you would want to think about. If you could go back to the previous slide and kind of think about where you might be and the competencies you want to develop, then you can think about what kind of training you want to have and how you would put that training into your IDP. We won't go into the details of that, but I just wanted to mention that's really a foundational point. Being intentional, thinking about developing yourself as you advance in your career. So going on to the next slide, you'll see that really it's very, very important for you to think about learning constantly. That is a requirement for the senior executive to be in a continual learning status. So besides training programs, think about ways that you can gain your leadership skills, like volunteer to lead special projects, serve on cross-functional teams, meet with executives, and like we did today, learn about their leadership journey. Some people do, informational interviews to find out about executives' path. I know for me, problem solving, I enjoy it. And I volunteered to do a lot of different things. Volunteered to do things that nobody else seemed to want to do or find to be interesting. But that is one way you can gain some great leadership skills. So going on to the next slide. Also think about jobs that are reshaped based on the organization needs. Sometimes there's a new function or a new staff, and a lot of people shy away from things like that because they're feeling like this is unknown. I don't really know what's going to happen if I do this. But as a leader, you realize that you never really know what's going to happen. You have confidence in yourself and your team and your ability to face an unknown future. So think about volunteering for some new kind of role, a role that requires problem solving, or a brand new role that nobody really even knows, what is this job supposed to do? Because you have an opportunity to apply your skills and show people that as a leader, you can address many new and unknown situations in a creative and effective fashion. Another way to get experience as a leader is to volunteer for rotation. If you are in the field, volunteer to do something at headquarters. If you're at headquarters, volunteer to go out and learn how to work in the field. Take on projects and task forces that are going to test you and try your ability to adapt and learn and gain new skills. This is a great way to build your leadership experience. As a leader, you'll learn that challenging yourself, stretching yourself on a regular basis is really what's going to be required as a leader, so don't shy away from that. If we go on to the next slide, what you'll see is like Diane, I would highly recommend mentoring. Mentoring is finding somebody that you think could help guide you, advise you as you grow as a leader. And this different perspective of a mentor, I would say choose somebody who's not necessarily just like you. I think probably the first mentor I had was somebody who saw my enthusiasm and my passion for making a difference and realized I was just bumbling and stumbling and not doing very well, and maybe felt sorry for me and reached out to try to help me do better and be more effective. So I would say be open and find someone you trust who can be honest and give you feedback. Sometimes that feedback may not be very comfortable, but it may be exactly what you have to hear. As your path to the SES will probably involve learning to listen to points of view that you don't necessarily agree with, but being open to hearing what other people have to say and recognizing that that is their perspective and that there's a value that they have to that perspective just as much as you have a value to yours. And you can find ways to blend those things so that people work together for the good of the organization. Mentors can help you with that, giving you that different perspective. Going on to the next slide, you may want to think about coaching. There's something right now called the Federal Coach Network. There are trained coaches throughout the whole federal sector, people who are actually certified as coaches. And you can get confidential coaching for free as a leader through this program. But a coach is different than a mentor. A coach is probably going to ask you a lot more questions. They may not know that much about your organization, but they do know how to challenge you, how to get you to think, and how to get you to try new and different things that will help you learn and grow. So think about coaching as another possible development opportunity. So let's go on to the next slide. There is a site, it's part of the USA Jobs website called openopportunities.gov. It's a place where short-term assignments and details are posted, not just at USDA, but around the whole government. So you could apply to help someone else. And by doing that, you learn some new skills and gain a whole different network through this process. excuse me. You can see a whole list of opportunities. Every time you look there, you'll probably see something different. You don't have to necessarily be an expert to volunteer to help. You may want to volunteer so you can grow some skills that you'd like to gain experience with. And you don't have to leave your job. You don't have to do some formal type of agreement for all of these types of opportunities. So take a look next time you get a chance. You might see something there that you really feel like is just right for you to try out some new leadership skills. And going on to the next slide, you'll see there's a federal-wide program called President's Management Council Interagency Rotation Program. This program is for GS 13 through 15s, allows you to go to a whole different department. You'll go outside of USDA, not from one USDA agency to another, but outside of USDA for 6 months to learn and grow. Your home agency continues to pay for your salary and benefits while you're on this rotation. They do it every 6 months, and we can send up to 7 people from USDA to this program. This program will help you learn that, you know, Diane was telling you she'd been in all these different SES positions, and sometimes it's hard for people to realize that the skills you have are transferable. And this program really does help you learn that your skills are transferable. You can take them to a totally new and different place, apply them and contribute to the team, and then you can also learn and grow. Right now that program is temporarily suspended because of COVID, but eventually it will open up. And you might say, well, what if I'm in the field? Could I do this program? There's something in the field called federal executive boards. They're in some of the large metropolitan areas and field locations. For example, I happen to know there's a federal executive board located in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They run these programs in their regional areas. So you can look online to Federal Executive Board and find the one in your area and see what programs they have to offer. They may be offering a program like this sometime soon in your geographic area. So going on to the next slide, we're going to talk briefly about the SES Candidate Development Program. This is definitely one of the ways to enter the Senior Executive Service. And once you are SES certified, this is like a diploma. It belongs to you, that certification. You may go to different types of jobs, maybe an SES, maybe not an SES. In fact, there are several different types of executive positions, but your certification belongs to you. The SES Candidate Development Program, or SES-CEP, we call it, it is an OPM approved program. So not everybody, not every training function can just go out and offer this program. You have to be approved in USDA. It has to be at the department level. We do it on behalf of the whole department, this program. Our programs, it's actually, there's a regulation that we have to follow for this program. This program can run from 12 to 24 months. And the program is based on something called Executive Core Qualifications, which just happens to correspond to those same competencies that we looked at in the second slide. So at some point you can go back and look at all those competencies, and you can see if you build your leadership skills on those competencies, you're going to be developing yourself to the SES Executive Core Qualifications. And interestingly, if you're selected into an SES job, those executive core qualifications become basically your performance elements. And that again, also, that's a federal-wide thing that's in the regulation. So those competencies are really, really important. But this training program focuses on developing people in those areas. So let's go on to the next slide. And we'll talk a little bit about the SES. I think Gayle asked that I tell you how many SES are at NRCS. Just so happened I wrote some stuff down in my work notebook the other day about SES at USDA, and at NRCS right now there are 15 SES, but in FPAC there's a total of 37. That does include the NRCS executives. So probably when somebody said 35, they were thinking of the whole FPAC group. But it's true that across USDA there's about 300, and in the federal government about 2,000. And SES really is all about leadership. And then, as we all know, leadership it's all about people. You've got to have that professional integrity that Diane, I think, was talking about. I tell people are watching you now. They were watching you before they had these videos. And they really watch leaders extremely closely. I say everybody knows everything. There are no secrets. So imagine that what you did today is on the front page of the Washington Post. You want it to be a good story. That's professional integrity. We do talk about, there's a whole section of requirements for ethics for SES that are really, really important. You got to have a broad perspective, and you really have to have commitment to serving the public good. You are charged with leading the continuing transformation of government. You've got to have a mindset that you continually want things to be better. You can't completely ever be satisfied. But at the same time, you can't really let yourself get negative or down on yourself. You have to constantly say, okay, maybe something didn't work this time. Let me learn and let me do better next time. You do have to interact with, as Diane was saying, the non-career or the political leadership. And SES positions have to have at least 25% supervisory responsibility. There's a different type of executive if you're just interested in science, being a scientific leader. It's called scientific and technical, which has no supervisory requirement. But the SES does have a supervisory requirement. So let's go on to the next slide. And on that slide, you'll see the process that we use for selecting people into the SES in a competitive way. A vacancy announcement is posted, and then it goes to something called an Executive Resources Board. This is a small group of SES who look at the executive core qualifications, or the resume that has executive competencies in it, and they rate the applications. And then sometimes they may conduct a structured interview, which means the interview is, again, usually based around the executive core qualifications. And eventually a hiring official makes the selection, but that's not the end of this process for the SES. Because the SES is a federal-wide cadre, your application and your executive core qualifications go to the Office of Personnel Management, to another board who takes a look at those that package, and they may or may not give feedback about your package. They may say, oh, Karlease really needs some more skill building in building coalitions. So we're going to give her a provisional appointment to the SES, and we want to see that she does these certain things within her first year. or she won't be completely validated as an SES. And SES actually does have a 1-year probationary period. That makes a lot of people nervous because it's been a long time since they've gone through a probationary period. But that is part of what that process is. So on the next slide, we'll give you a little bit of an idea about how this plays out. There are 5 competencies in the executive core qualifications: leading change, leading people, results-driven business acumen, and building coalitions. And each one of these is different. Each one of them has a unique focus. Altogether, there are 28 competencies, as I mentioned from that second slide. 22 are specific to those 5 ECQs, and 6 are fundamental or foundational. Remember those ones across the bottom. So this is what, if you were going to apply for an SES position and you had to write your ECQs, you would need to know about these things. And the ECQs, I tell people, some people are like, oh, I don't like those. I don't know, it seems like it's kind of artificial, kind of forced, this weird structure. But I tell people that these are really good way for people to tell their leadership story. Tell your story about your experience with leading change, with leading people, with driving results, with understanding how to improve business or build coalitions. All of these things are really fundamental for executives. So these ECQs are an opportunity for you to tell your leadership story. And I usually ask people, who's the best at telling stories, leadership stories in your organization? And a lot of times the answer I get when people think about this is, oh, it's probably your chief. So this tells you something about how important telling your leadership story is and why that is part of this process of applying to the SES. As a leader, you'll have to tell your story in a very specific format. If you want to get more people, or if you want to keep your people, or if you want to get a budget or keep your budget. So this is just a sort of a welcome to the SES, understanding this format and using it. So let's go on to the next slide. So we're just going to look at one of those ECQs. And the one we're looking at is the first one, leading change. Here's a list of the competencies that are associated with leading change. So when you're writing your ECQs, you would want to highlight these competencies as you tell your leadership story. Don't highlight competencies from the other ECQs, because if you do, you're wasting your time and effort. You won't get credit. A lot of people, they see that strategic thinking and they think, oh, I'm going to write about strategic thinking and leading people or in building coalitions. Well, you can, but you won't get credit for it. You got to have your competencies in the right ECQ. So that's something to think about. So you'd be thinking and formulating your story along these competencies here in your ECQs, whether you're writing about them or talking about them in your structured interview. So going on to the next slide, once you know those competencies, then here's some things to think about if you are going to write your own ECQs. You know, this is just a list of questions that will help you get started. And I think that if you're really interested in the SES, I tell people whether you might be a GS-12 or a GS-9 and think someday I'd like to be an SES, go ahead and take a shot at writing your ECQs. Because when you do that, one of the things you'll learn is for 1 or 2 of these 5 ECQs, you could write 10 pages because you're really strong, you're really experienced, But then there's always at least one of these ECQs. You get out your piece of paper and you hear crickets, or maybe you hear my cuckoo clock. You don't have an answer for this competency, this ECQ. That means, oh, this is where I need to grow and develop. That's not a problem, but if you start early, you'll know exactly where you need to grow and develop, the ones that you really can't write about very well. So let's go on to the next slide. And in that slide, you'll see the format that you use to write your ECQs. It's called the CCAR model: challenge, context, action, result. So as you tell your leadership story, you talk about, I kind of like to flip it and do context, challenge. Context is sort of like, the Farm Bill had just been passed, and as a leader in NRCS, that's your context, I was asked to, and then you start to describe your challenge. I was asked to lead a task force to implement a new regulation to meet the requirements of the Farm Bill that had me going out and talking to farmers and ranchers all across the country in small groups. Well, that's where you're talking about your action. What did you do to take on this challenge? And then it's really important at the end, you talk about your results. And results doesn't mean to say, as a result, I achieved being recognized with this particular award. That's really nice. But as an executive, you are being asked to show that something changed. So what got better and by how much? How many people did you reach compared to how many knew about this before? What decreased that was a problem? All of these things you would want to put in your results section. So you would do this for each of the ECQs. And that's your executive storytelling framework. Whether you're writing about it or whether you're doing it, talking about it in an interview. I think a lot of people, if they're interviewing for an SES, they just make the mistake of thinking that it's a standard interview. It's not. It's going to be scored on the ECQs, and probably it's going to be scored with this kind of framework in mind. So it's good information for you to keep. Whether you think you want to apply for an SES or an SES CDP today or in 10 years. So going on to the next slide, there's some general concepts about writing your ECQs. Keep your examples to 10 years or younger. Sometimes you have a really, really great example and it's older than 10 years. And if you really feel like you have to do that, I would say, then just don't highlight your years. But the whole idea is you're going to be fresh as a leader, and you have to walk the line because you may be the most excited about what you're doing right now. But in that case, you may not have results. If that's the case, but you really want to write about it, I say think about the project you're working on right now. Can it be divided into phases? You may have some results for your first phase, and then you can write about what you're working on right now. Make sure your examples are clear and easy to follow. You don't want to put a bunch of bureaucratic language in here. This is your leadership story. So you've got to make sure that people can read it and really understand it. And going on to the next slide, we've got some more things to think about. You got to talk about what you did. If it's just our team, my team, we, the person who's reading this and trying to score it, they're not going to know what to do. You got to talk about what you did. And that may be a little bit weird, strange, something you haven't done before, but it's got to be done for these ECQs. Also, limit the number of acronyms. You may know some of the acronyms that apply to your unit or your function, but not everybody does. So make sure that people really can understand. And then remember, these ECQs go over to the Office of Personnel Management. You may have somebody from like DOD reading your ECQs and they're like, what is that? So you have to really explain in common, simple terms. Again, if you're telling your leadership story, this is the best way to do it. So going on to the next slide. Those were the do's, and now we have the don'ts. Please, if you can help it, don't repeat an example across more than one ECQ. Don't have typos. You're a leader. You're setting the tone for others. This really needs to be very, very, good in representing you. Don't have people hunting around from one part to the other to figure out what you're talking about. Absolutely do not make a disparaging remark about something about other people. I've seen people start the context to say, something really negative about leadership, and that just doesn't sit very well. You can talk about challenges in ways that really don't say negative things about people. You have to remember that you may not know everything that others face, and it's easy to make judgments, but much harder to face the same challenges. So don't make those disparaging remarks. And don't use the bureaucratic words and expressions. Like I said, make it simple and clear. Going on to the next slide, I think we have a few more. Yeah, so how can you get there to be an SES? I think it was Gayle who said, really ask yourself, why do you want to be an SES? I know for me, I think it really was more, I was driven to solve problems, to find solutions, to make things better. And that sort of compelled me in the direction that I ended up going in. I never planned on being an SES. I started as a GS-12 in Texas at a training center, and never, in my wildest dreams, didn't think that I would be an SES. But mostly, I just really wanted to serve the agency and make a difference and solve problems. And as I said, people are watching you. They see if there's a new opportunity, whether you do or you don't volunteer for that. If the agency's facing a challenge, whether you do or you don't step up to contribute and find some new solutions for the organization. So then assess whether your own experiences, as I mentioned, try to write your ECQs. That'll give you some feeling for what you need to do to grow and develop. Look at the SES vacancies on USA Jobs. And remember that your experience certainly could translate within USDA. I think more and more we're seeing a lot of movement of executives in USDA, which is very, revitalizing. I worked in food safety and inspection service before I came to work at the department. And that foundational experience is so important for me even today. Ask people to give you feedback and keep learning, keep improving. I look back at the first time I wrote my ECQs, and I have to admit, they were terrible. They really were. But I didn't get discouraged from that. I took some feedback, and every time I applied for an executive position 5 different times before the magic worked. And when I look back on it, I would say none of the previous 4 jobs were right for me. It was that 5th job that was really the right job for me. And the other 4 just helped me hone and sharpen my skills so that I was ready for the opportunity when it presented itself. Go on to the next slide. This link will take you to an amazing resource. It's a federal-wide resource that OPM provides. It's called A Guide to SES Qualifications. And it tells you everything you need to know about writing your ECQs, whether you're going to apply for a vacancy announcement or whether you're going to apply to an SES CDP. You need to know these things. Now, for an SES CDP, some people are like, well, is it fair that people who apply for that program and get certified, then they can get placed into an SES job without having to apply? And I remind people that they applied to get into the SES CDP. So this last SES CDP that Astrid applied for, this SES CDP, we had over 1,000 people apply for that job. It was extremely competitive. So never say that people in the SES CDP did not have to apply for an SES job. They did, and they had to compete in a more rigorous fashion. A couple of other resources on this slide. If you go to AgLearn, you'll see a webinar recording of a PowerPoint presentation on how to put your ECQs in a resume. And more where people are asking that you do that. It's got some really helpful resources there too. And if we go to the next slide, what you'll see is just information on me and my team, and we're always available to help you, to answer your questions, to be a resource for you. If you have your ECQs and you'd like to get some feedback from us, you're welcome to send them. We'll do our best to get some time to review those and give you some feedback. We can do that as long as we're not running a program, because when we run a program, then there's a conflict of interest because we're having to make selections for participants. I could talk a long time, but I know you have other things on your program for today. So I'll stop at this.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Karlease. Like I said, there's so many things to talk about, but I'm going to hand it over to April and we will field some questions. And we have had some questions and comments come into the chat.
Great.
One of the questions was on journaling, and there was an answer, but the question was, how do you kind of get started? How do you kind of get in a groove, I guess, of journaling?
Well, I know Gayle said that she sets goals for herself every year. And I think that it's helpful to write a journal, if you're writing a journal, to identify some goals, identify, and then write about your experiences, what worked well, and what you'd like to improve.
The other question that came in was, how many women are in the SES for FPAC or NRCS?
I'm sorry I don't have that information right off the top of my head, but I'm going to make a note and I'll send it to April if that's okay.
That's fine. Thank you. And I think that's all the questions that we had. So if anybody else has some journaling tips or other information on the number of women in the SES, then they can always add that to the chat also. So I think we're ready to start our third part.
All right, so let's introduce Karen Woodrich and Astrid Martinez. They both are actively in the program now, and I think they have some interesting tips and some stories about their journey that I think we can all learn from. So I'll turn it over to Karen and Astrid.
Thanks, Katharina. You know, Karen and I practiced our speech yesterday. We'll see how it goes out today. So we're gonna be doing a tag team here because we wanna cover a few bullets with all of you. And I think we're just gonna start with why and when we decided to be an SES. So Karen, why you don't go first?
Sure. So, you know, a lot of people ask me, well, since there's several different paths to get to SES, why would you go through the CDP process? It's 12 to 18 months long. And, you know, why would you do that? Why would you want to do that? And for me, I went to the Federal Executive Institute a couple years ago, and that's a month-long course that I was able to apply to go to. And it was after that experience that I really decided I could do it, and wanted to apply for the program just to make sure that that was the path that I wanted to choose. I've seen other people succeed as SCSers. I mean, Gayle, Diane, all the folks that were on earlier today, and they're role models. And I'd really like to, you know, continue to do that for the agency. I want to be a good leader. You know, I want to work for good leaders. And if I want to do that, I feel like I need to be one of those. So that's kind of how I made my decision to apply for the CDP.
In my case, I don't remember one night that I decided that I want to be an SCS. It was something that I always aspire to do better things and bigger things through my life. I know it has not been easy as a single mother, although my daughter is 23 years old now, out of the house and on her own, and being very successful independent woman, I have to say. But I always look for those opportunities that raise to the occasion and look for the next steps. And she was always my biggest support. Hey mom, just go for the next one. So through the years, talking about mentors, coaching, Gayle, Diane, Carlos, Astor, they're always been very supportive of me, and they were always pushing me to the next step. So like Karen went to FBI to learn a big deal. And at that time I was like, wow, you know this is something that I really want to do, and I think I'm ready for the next step whenever that happens. Just happens that the last week of FBI, there's the announcement for the senior executive CDP, and I'm like, okay, this is a little too soon. Is there a sign out there that is telling me you need to do it now, or should I just wait? So I got a couple of calls from friends. Hey, you're putting in for it, right? You're putting in for it. You're just finishing FBI. You're putting in for it. I'm like, man, it's too soon. It's too soon. No, maybe I just wait. Maybe I just wait. And what I was trying to decide that I was working on it, it got extended for 2 more weeks to apply. I said, well, you know what? There's another sign. I need to put in for it. So good thing I already had my ECQs done a few years ago, talking about keeping your resume up to date. Besides doing my resume up to date, I did my ECQs, and I had a group of people kind of reviewing them and writing them, not because I was applying for anything, but I want to be ready when that opportunity arises. I was ready for it. I even have my technical skills written too that I don't think we're going to need anymore based on some new changes. But you know, I think I was very lucky that, you know, Karen and I were able to compete with over 1,000 people, and we got selected. So that, I think that speaks highly of the two of us. We always have looked for better ways to succeed. We're always prepare ourselves. And like Karen, I want to be a good leader, be part of the change, be part of the decision, and be able to lead everybody like a rock star. You want to put it that way?
Yeah, and then, you know, part of the CDP program is going to, for us, we go to American University and had some week-long classes on campus there. And then we spent a week really kind of getting what I would call analyzed, learning more about how to write ECQs and more about really what the SES is about. So we spent a week with some really, really great coaches and observers, and they helped us identify weaknesses, helped us identify strengths. And, you know, for those who have taken the 360 assessment, you know, sometimes that can be really hard to hear what your weaknesses are. But what I really learned there is that you can't focus on the weaknesses alone, right? You need to take the feedback, you need to understand where your weaknesses are, but you also need to play on your strengths. Know where those gaps are and work on how to improve those gaps and fill those gaps. And again, use your biggest strengths to continue to help you move forward.
Yeah, that week was very, very intense because you learn a big deal about yourself, whether you want it or not. You're there to learn about yourself. Karlease is laughing because she knows what I'm talking about. And you're there to learn about yourself. And sometimes it's hard because we are hard on ourselves. We look at our weaknesses and we don't celebrate our strengths. So for me that week, just sitting just now with my cohort, but with this group of experts, looking at everything that I did or that I do based on the different situations and scenarios, received the feedback. There was times that I'm like, yeah, I know, I need to do better. You don't need to tell me, I know. But it was kind of the encouragement. I said, you know what, but you really did really great on this, and you should use that strength on this end to make you better on the other one. And I'll kind of give you an example. One of the exercises after almost 12 hours working through the day, they throw you at the very last minute, you need to write the video. You need to go sit in front of the camera, you need to talk for 5 minutes about the exercise that we did today and how you're gonna present this to your folks out there. Everybody that knows me will not think that I'm camera shy, because I am camera shy. I can speak in front of you with a microphone for hours, but don't put me in front of a camera because I just blank out. So I'm like, let's put your time where you wanna do, you have half hour to prepare. I'm like, nope, I'm not gonna prepare anything. I hate cameras. I'm just gonna go in, I have my 5 bullets, I'm gonna sit down. And there was a lot of things that they were looking at you during the video. One of them was how you're gonna connect to the audience. Are you delivering the message? It's clear and understood and concise. So name it. So I sit down, put the camera, one shot, blah, 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 blah. I walk out of there, I say, I'm done. When I got the feedback the next day, the lady sitting with me, I look at her and say, yeah, I suck really bad, right? She's like, no, actually, you were one of the best videos we saw. I'm like, what? Really? I'm camera shy. I hate cameras. So sometimes we're harder on ourselves than what we really are. So just keep that in mind, because what I learned from that week, it was like, maybe I don't need to be so hard on myself. I just need to let everybody else tell me, and I'm doing it right, I'm doing it wrong, and trust them, not trust on me thinking that I didn't do a good job.
I think the other thing I wanted to touch on is the other part of the program is you have to do an executive level detail. And for us right now, we have to go outside our own agency. So Astrid and I both had to go outside NRCS to do details. And so I'm on one right now with a non-governmental organization. And it's been very interesting, even in these times, with social distancing, but I chose to do that outside of government simply to get another perspective and try to figure out how I can bring some innovations and some energy back to my role currently as the state conservationist in Kansas, but also as a senior executive. Bringing that, again, that excitement, that innovation, those new ways to motivate people and address challenges and trying to find ways to make us all better. You know, being a public servant is hard, but that's why we do what we do, is giving back. And I'm trying to learn some of those new skills from the outside to try to help make us better.
No, and one of the things, you know, when Karlease told us, we need to go in detail outside the agency, I'm like, well, actually, I want to do it outside the agency anyway, because I want to really stretch myself, learn new things, you know, not that there was nothing wrong with NRCS, you know, I would have loved to be here anyway, but it would have been really good just to go outside, learn what other leaders do, because I'm so used to work with the same leaders in the agency, just get different perspective of what they do as leaders in other agencies. Learn their processes, what other things they do, what I can bring back to NRCS, and what I can use as for myself as improving those. So my detail right now, I'm working with Foreign Ag Service, and I thought that Foreign Ag Service was just all about trades and dealing with trade missions. No, it's just more than that, worldwide. So one of the things that I'm really enjoying with them is I can be sitting here in Washington, I'm talking with somebody in Hong Kong 12 hours earlier or later, I think that I had, and we're having a conversation on the same mission and having that same passion that we do on NRCS. And what I'm doing on the detail, it's really stretching me to the limits, just because of the situation now. Can't go to the South Building, so I'm working out of my apartment here in Washington instead of being in Wyoming. But one of the things that I'm doing is reading a lot on contracting, on appropriations law. It's things that I knew, but I really didn't know, and put together a report on how it can be improved for FAS, especially for the program that I'm overseeing. The one thing that I say is, for me, is a really stretch. I'm a very visual and talkative person. I can read you 10 manuals and I can summarize it to you just speaking. Don't tell me to write summary, because that's where I'm getting, I struggle putting things in writing. I'm not a writer, like some of you say. I'm not a journal person. I'm not either. So for me, that's a really good stretch. That is like, okay, I think strategy. I know how to do things. I know how to put them in bullets. Now I need to expand them and explain them. So I'm really enjoying that part of the detail, because it's making me do things that I used to do, but because of the nature of the job, we stopped doing it and we got a little rusty, and now I need to do it again. So it's been really good. The other thing is the mentor that I have through the SES CDP. He has helped me tremendously, because he's also from another agency. We had to look for a mentor outside of the agency and get different perspective. It's good just to chit chat on the things that we're doing. She went through the same thing that I'm going through, because they did the detail, they were on the program the same way. So it's good to get that feedback from that individual, and it keeps your mind thinking, keeps you clear, it keeps you going. I just met with him this morning and we had virtual coffee together. So it was really interesting. And I have to say, I'm really enjoying the program.
All right, Karen and Astrid, did you get everything in there that you wanted to? Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, one last thing. And for us, for Karen and I, we used to be very technical people in the past. And I was visiting with one of my employees the other day. Sometimes we think that the higher we go, the more technical we need to get as leaders. It's not the case. That's why one of the things that we learned through the program, the higher you go up, the less technical you become, the more soft skills you need to learn and be for you to be a really good leader. So sometimes just to have that mindset that, hey, I need to forget everything about programs and just become a leader, it's a mind switch for some people.
And the only thing I'll add to that, Astrid, is, you know, I find it hard as not as a supervisor, when I look up, sometimes I think, oh gosh, that supervisor is not technical, doesn't know how to do this or that. And Astrid is right though, as you start moving up and switching from that manager to that leader, sometimes you need to let some of those technical expertises go. And that's hard. You know, we're a science-based agency and that's what we do. So that's been something that's been a journey for me, is to let some of that go and transition into more of those soft skills.
That's so interesting. And with your perspective being fresh and transitioning from your state con positions into, you know, even yet a different leadership role. I really enjoyed that. I think I could talk with you two for a couple hours. All right, so we've had 3 sections, and I'm going to turn it back over to April, so then we can open up the door for questions. We are past our time. We did go for an hour and a half, even though the Outlook calendar said an hour. We feel that this information and these leaders have such rich content that we've got to give them, you know, this hour and a half, or April and I said we could probably do 2.5 hours. I mean, but we are very respectful of your time. So I'm going to turn it back over to April to help us wrap up.
Okay, so we'll start with a question or two, something that we can kind of wrap up fairly fast, if there is any.
I have a question, April.
Go ahead.
I guess primarily for Astrid and Karen. When you guys are choosing your mentors, especially in this program, are you choosing them personally, or are you looking for help to choose a mentor? How did that work?
Yeah, so hi.
Go
Hi.
ahead.
For me, so when we got into the SES CDP, when we found out we had to pick a mentor, again, outside the agency, they did supply us with some suggested names of folks, but it was up to us to go and find a mentor. So you could choose off a list that they gave you, or, you know, I had known a few other people outside the agency, and I reached out to a few of those folks and tried to find the right match for me. It wasn't the first person that I reached out to, and that's fine. You know, you have to figure out who you connect with from a mentoring capacity. So yeah, there was a little bit of help from the program, but it was mainly seeking out someone on our own.
Thank you.
There's a question there on the chat on the 360 assessment.
Yes.
Karlease, you want to address that one?
The question is, can someone speak to the 360 assessment? We do hear that term quite often, but how do we use that? Who uses that, and how does it work?
Sure, I'd be happy to speak to that. I strongly support the use of 360s in leadership development. A 360 assessment is an assessment where questions go out to your supervisor, your peers, your colleagues, and sometimes your customers, to ask people to give you feedback. And you usually get a report, 360 report, that kind of shows you, you know, what these people are saying, for example, and then you assess yourself usually in that process. So you get a report that shows, like, you know, maybe I think I'm doing pretty good at building coalitions, but my boss thinks I could do better. My peers think I'm about average, and, you know, the people that I supervise think I'm amazing, you know. So it really gives you sort of remember I was talking about, it's good for you to have those different perspectives. And, you know, in this case, I might say, it'd be good for me, for my own growth and development, to talk to my boss and find out, how do they think I could do better in this area? A lot of time, a 360 will also come with someone who will either talk you through as a group or as an individual about all of the questions. A lot of times there's many questions on a 360, and it can be very overwhelming when you look at the feedback. You're like, whoa, what do I do? Where do I start? So the coach or the person who's doing the feedback a lot of times points you, helps you find a targeted group of things from that survey that you want to work on. And then ideally, you know, maybe if it's being done in conjunction with a leadership development program, they do the 360 to start with. And then at the end, they do it again after maybe a year or so. And you can see that you've actually changed something in that process. So I would say if you're doing a 360, you don't want to just do it once. Ideally, you want to do it, try to change yourself. So it's all about changing yourself. And then having another assessment so that you can measure your growth.
How does one start that assessment? I'm sorry.
Say that question again. I want to add something for NRCS.
How do you start that? How do you access that assessment?
So I'll turn it over to the experts here, but I want to give, how do you do this in NRCS land? So in NRCS, the best two ways to do that are when you have your performance, your quarterly now performance review with your supervisor, go ahead and ask them about that. And so they're the best way to support that and, you know, raise that up to your state conservationists. I know many, if not all of them, and Karen's shaking her head, and Astrid too, are aware of this instrument, and we use it quite a bit. For the states that have state leadership development programs or multi-state leadership development programs, that's almost always some form of that is available through that. And if your state doesn't have an LDP, please talk to your supervisors and up to the line to encourage them to do that. Astrid and Karen, I think there's 19 now going in NRCS at the state level, either individually in a state like California or multi-state. So if you guys don't have access to that, change comes from within sometimes. And I just would encourage you in a very professional, respectful way to ask for what you need to continue to grow your career.
We had another question. Is additional leadership training provided to help improve your EQ?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it has helped me leadership training to improve my ECQs in different ways, especially when it comes to leading people. Because the more leadership training that you take, the more you can learn and the better leader you can become. There's so many ways on how to be a leader that we have learned so many tools that I lost count after 5 between FEI and then the classes here. There's goodness, numerous tools.
I want to add in something, Heidi. I'm not sure if you meant EQ, emotional quotient, or ECQs, but I'm just going to answer it the way I want to because it's what I want to say. Anyway, I think, you know, one of the things I did on my ECQs is there's 5 of them, and Karlease went over that. I wrote 2 examples of awesome projects I had under each of those ECQs early in my career. And then I spent the next 5 years making sure I had one better example in each of those buckets. And it goes to what Karlease was saying, you know, make sure they're broad, make sure they're diverse, you know, make sure it's not all one thing. And, you know, when you get a better example, you can go back, because I think you said this, Karlease, I tuned out a little bit, you can go back 10 years. So you want to be getting those examples and knowing which story you're going to tell under each of those. So training is okay, but if you're going to have a good, strong ECQ, you should spend probably a year doing whatever that project was from start to finish. A good ECQ example took some time, took some effort, involved a lot of people, and really highlighted your leadership skills. Training's probably not going to be enough, but Heidi, I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay, we'll take one last question. And Heidi, if you want to reach out to Gayle, I bet she'll help you with that question if you have some clarifying statements or questions for her. So, any last questions? Well, I fully believe that this was beneficial for any level of staff in our agency. If you're in the field, there's nuggets to help you be a better field person, a better soil conservationist, moving up to the district conservationist and on up the line and staff. And then if you want to move into some other areas, you know, there's tons of nuggets here to help you move up. And not only the information is good, but now you have faces and names to help you along your journey, to talk to for mentoring, for coaching, just questions to help you get to that point that you'd like to be. And one of the things that I have heard over and over is being intentional. If you're not intentional, things don't just happen passively. You have to be intentional about your growth, about your career development to get to those points that you want to be. So, anything else to wrap up, Katrina?
I just want to make sure folks know that next month is the SLDP. Yeah. And we have several folks in WIN leadership that have completed the SLDP, and I am currently in SLDP. So we are looking forward to you folks. You know, we're going to get together that team and get it on your calendar. Can you remind us of the date, April?
May 15th.
Yes, May 15th. All right. Nope, April, I think, you know, I've voiced both of your and my thank you to everyone. This has been really valuable. In fact, I really want to go back and listen to the recording. Yeah. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If you folks who aren't a WIN member yet, you might want to consider joining and helping us keep our strong leadership out there supporting our employees.
Very good.
Thanks for the invite.
All right, everybody stay safe.
Bye.